Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal.
Howard, explain to us global trade as you understand it, and then the context of tariffs, and maybe historically, and what role they play now.
Who is Howard Lutnick?
Today, I'm honored to swear in our next Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Howard Lutnick. I've known him a long time. He's a great guy. But more importantly, he's a patriot who loves our country and has shown tremendous courage and strength throughout his career.
This is the greatest country on earth. It is such a great country that we can take care of our citizens and give them their Social Security. We can take care of everyone and give them their Medicaid. But we're going to get rid of so much waste, fraud, and abuse. America was built on tariffs with no income tax. No income tax till 1913.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is right. Here's the historical context behind his comments on tariffs and taxes. Tariffs are defined as duties or taxes levied by the federal government on imported or exported goods. 95% of the federal budget was tariff revenue. We were funding the government with tariffs, and we're talking about a minimum of 25% tariff and upwards since the birth of this country until the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln's administration, too, doubled down on tariffs amid the Civil War, and tariff rates soared to 47%. They have been in existence in the United States since the adoption of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, states that Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and exercises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense in general welfare of the United States. But all duties imposed and exercises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Protective tariffs were key and served a dual purpose. They protected private industry from foreign competition and provided revenue for internal improvement projects. In turn, projects such as canal and road building produced needed jobs and improved the nation's infrastructure. A national bank provided cheap credit and uniform currency. Americans believed this system would create a sound economy, and it was the responsibility of the government to promote it. In the United States, shortly after the ratification of the new Constitution, the first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, called for the use of the protective tariff as an official government policy. In his 1791 report on manufacturers, Hamilton argued that if the United States were to be prosperous and secure, it had to be economically independent from Europe. In order for a nation to be economically independent, it had to have a competitive manufacturing sector. Not only the wealth, but the independence and security of a country appeared to be materially connected with prosperity of manufacturers. There were, however, several factors preventing America from achieving this. First, since the United States was a new nation and primarily agricultural, its manufacturing sector was relatively mature. Second, European governments heavily subsidized their private industries. Third, Europe was allowed to dump cheap goods into the United States. Hamilton reasoned that if the situation were not remedied, the effects would be disastrous for America. The growth of home manufacturing would be retarded even further, since Americans would naturally buy cheaper, more abundant, and possibly better-made foreign goods. American manufacturers would lose markets and possibly fail. Second, America would remain dependent on Europe for its essential goods. In a time of war, this could be disastrous. Third, America's gold and silver bullion would leave the country and reaching foreign nations while America became poorer. To prevent these things from happening, Hamilton believed it necessary for the government to protect and aid domestic industry. Look at this chart. By 1913, America's GDP dwarfed Britain, France, Germany, and Russia combined. This isn't just growth. It's the fruition of Hamilton's vision. Protective tariffs didn't stunt America. They built a powerful and wealthy America. The early 1900s saw significant debate over tariff policies, with commissions like the Tariff Board, 1909, focusing on setting rates and analyzing effects. In 1910, President Taft appointed the Blue Ribbon Commission on Economy and Efficiency, a panel of distinguished experts tasked with independently analyzing and improving the federal government's operations. This Blue Ribbon Commission work included examining departmental jurisdiction, personnel practices, accounting and finance procedures, and proposing the first comprehensive federal budget. Given tariffs' role in federal revenue, this commission likely considered how tariff funds were allocated within the broader budget.
Greatest, richest country in the world. So when Donald Trump says, make America great again, what he's talking about is from 1880 to 1913, when the country had so much money that we had blue ribbon commissions, which you guys would have been on, right? To try to figure out how to spend the money, right? And no income tax.
From 1880 to 1913, the U.S. built a battleship fleet, acquired overseas colonies in Latin America, but also in Asia as well. The U.S. foreign policy in the 1880 to 1914 period is pursuing something that's almost diametrically opposed to what it is pursuing after 1945.
We put in the income tax in 1913. Why? Because we're entering World War I. And don't we all need to contribute to protect democracy and to protect our way of life? Right? Then what happens is the world goes into chaos. We come out of chaos, right? And then we're starting to think of, well, what do we do? What do we do? And then 1929, the stock market crashes, right? 1933, we start to say, oh, God, we forgot, we need to do tariffs. 1933, how can you do tariffs when the markets crash, the world's going into depression, and you're going to do tariffs in 1933? You can't charge the rest of the world money unless the rest of the world's okay.
That's right.
So it was too little, too late, right? So then we come out of World War II. It's 1945. We need to rebuild the world. Okay, so we decide we're going to take our tariffs down. And we'll let them, here's the key, we'll let them have tariffs be up. Export the power of our economy to let them rebuild. And we'll let them rebuild. And that's what happens. So 1945, we have the Marshall Plan, right? And we do it in Japan, of course, because they need to be rebuilt. What's the difference, right? So they need to be rebuilt. And then what happens? We have the 50s, and we have the Korean War. So we let them rebuild, which means low tariffs here, high tariffs there. Low tariffs here, high tariffs there. Then we have the Vietnam War, right? So now all of a sudden we have all of Southeast Asia. Low tariffs here, high tariffs there.
I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster, the Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are, he's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting, we have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money? I think it's ridiculous.
You know what the best example I can give you to make it crystal clear? Kuwait. We spend almost $100 billion freeing Kuwait, right? You know who has the highest tariffs against the United States of America? The number one country with the highest tariffs against the United States of America. Kuwait. And you think, what? That's insane. But here's what it is. If you go back to this understanding the way America thinks, you need to be rebuilt. You were just destroyed, right? All their oils were, you remember Red, the guy's name was Red something, and he was the guy who capped all there were fires in all the oil wells, and he capped them all, and it was amazing. So we let them put up high tariffs. But you know what the problem is? Then we forget.
Right.
And we let it go.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump comes in and says, it's got to stop.
The Republican Party has long championed protective tariff policies, a tradition rooted in the vision of the nation's first Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton. From Abraham Lincoln, widely regarded as the greatest Republican president, to the modern leadership of Donald J. Trump, this commitment has remained a defining pillar of the party. I was an old Henry Clay tariff Whig. I gave more speeches on protective tariffs than any other topic, and I haven't changed my views since, said Abraham Lincoln long before he became President of the United States.
Are you a Republican, Donald?
I'm a Republican, yes.
Incredible context now for tariffs. It's like, it was a long-term strategy that essentially says, okay, great, there's rebuilding to be done, sort of almost out of the largesse of America. we're going to enable that to happen. So we'll lower tariffs here and we'll support the high tariff regimes over there.
We let it happen.
We let it happen.
On purpose.
But it's an incredible thing you're also saying, though, which is that it's inexorably linked to this repetitive machinery of war, because those create these boundary conditions over and over again.
Always.
Where there's so much destruction abroad that America then feels compelled to have to do this.
Correct.
And
That's
so-
exactly right. So what happens is, and then you say to yourself, okay, I get the 40s, I get the 50s, I get the 70s, right? But 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, what? It's time out. 20. So Donald Trump gets elected 2016. Who understands this? Okay, let me give you a hint. Donald J. Trump. Who else? Nobody.
Yeah.
Right? You'd say, wow, he understands. And how long has he been talking about it? 40 years.
Yeah.
Why? Because in the 80s, he's saying, what are you doing?
But you really need the federal government to step in. That's why it bothers me so much that when we give this kind of money to the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet for our own people, the homeless, the sick, the poor, the farmers, who are really going through hell right now, those people we're not helping. And why should we? I think it's ridiculous. And this country shouldn't be raising taxes. We ought to be lowering taxes. We should have a surplus, not a deficit. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But those countries should be paying us major billions of dollars, and you won't have any deficits whatsoever, and then we'll be able to help the poor and the sick and the homeless and the farmers and everybody else.
Brilliantly came in with an income tax. No, we don't want others to pay. Let's have our people pay. How about just no tax? You could do that. You know, if the tariffs work out like I think, a thing like that could happen if you want to know the truth. You know, years ago, 1870 to 1913, we didn't have an income tax. What we had is the tariff system made so much money. It was when we were the richest.
So when President Trump and his cabinet launched a global tariff war, it wasn't a radical departure. It was a return to America's original economic playbook. Protective tariffs have been part of our nation's strategy since its founding, first used against European powers, and now, once again, in response to modern economic threats from China and beyond. What Trump revived wasn't new. It was a deeply American tradition that spans from Hamilton to Lincoln to the present day.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. American steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. We are finally putting America first. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart. This will be indeed the golden age of America.